floorboards out. That's enough, thank you. Very good. I guess I'll take this one out so you can see the front pump also. Tom, you probably got all the things you needed to get, but Herb Kephart brought these last time and I stapled them together. Might be interesting for my course, but he asked if he could come back today and take some pictures and observe, so that's why there are 4 of us here this morning, but you 3 are the main ones. And I think I have 4 this afternoon for the same reason, but anyway, that's fine. Well, what we've done, and try to be somewhat consistent, although of course none of these sessions will turn out exactly like. What we've done is get through the firing up process, checking things before firing up and then firing up and so forth. And then the only reason I jacked the car here with the floorboards out and run it a little on the jack after we get a little steam is to just show you the operation of the pumps, show you how we can check to see if the pumps are working, things like that. That wouldn't be necessary in every firing up procedure, but it's just part of the familiarization. And then I drive up the road. We make kind of a 5-mile trip with trying to tell you everything that's going on, everything I'm doing, everything the car is doing in this 5 miles up and down, around. And then come back, you in turn drive, but just around the driveway this first lesson. The next time you'll drive on the road. Today, I think just around the driveway. You know, each of you go around several times. And that's the way we've been doing it. Normally the whole thing has lasted anywhere from 2 hours to 2.5. Is that okay with your timetable to finish up between 12 and 12:30? Okay. Well, Chris, what's the first thing we need to check now before thinking about firing up?
Water.
Yeah, that's right. So how do we do that?
Get a bucket.
Yeah, get a bucket, but you don't know the boiler's full yet.
Okay. So the valve on the side?
Well, you can try that. Yeah, that's a dry cock. Open that and see what happens. Right. That valve, that's a dry cock 4 inches off the bottom.
This one only has one.
This one, one, yeah, that's right. The little 1980 has.
Yeah,
most of them have. You don't get much. Okay. It's because, now you don't know whether the boiler's full or empty. It's probably one or the other. If it's full, it's because it can't vent itself.
Okay.
So let's make sure we vent it. Now the throttle's open, the drip valve on the bottom of the steam chest is open. You would say it should be vented. Well, it should, but when it's siphoned full, that steam pipe, at least to where the throttle was, through the probably filled up with water, and there may still be water laying in there which prevents the air from venting it. So we try to think, well, where else can we vent it? Well, on most of these cars there is a place. A lot of them, as they originally turned out, had a siphon valve, but and they took steam off the top of the boiler to, it's really an ejector is what it is, a jet of steam with a water hose connected here and into a lake or whatever. The jet sucks it up and fills your water tank. Well, I have it disconnected on this car, but I've used that valve for a stack blower. A stack blower is just a jet fed down the stack here for the purpose of sucking out unburned fumes and that sort of thing. So if we open that, and on this car it's this one, that should vent. Now, see if...
Because that's directly off the top of the boiler?
Yeah, that comes off. It comes off the top. Actually, it comes through
Okay,
here.
now we're getting good water.
Yeah, well, then get your bucket. Now, chances are it is completely full. because we had to vet it to get anything in the truck car. Probably the same would have happened had you opened this. You wouldn't have gotten much without vetting.
Is this one we're taking the valve?
Can you see the valve in there? Yeah, just open it a couple times. Okay, well, we're drained off a full bucket, but we don't have to wait if we want to start heating up. Tom, why don't you get the torch there? Or would you rather make notes and have somebody else get the torch out of the toolbox? And bring a screwdriver too. Right. Now, what you want to do, keep this is your pilot, the hot end of your pilot vaporizer, and down to the nozzle. This is the cold end, so it won't hurt you. Put a little heat on that tip. And this is a little U-tube, okay, then over the pilot pants and then back out again. Not much vaporization on the pilot, but it's enough. But when we heat it externally, we just, for conduction, we're going to heat as much as we can on the part we can reach here. At the same time, it won't hurt to spread a little heat across here and down on your nose, on your nasal hose.
What size boiler is this?
This is about 20 horsepower, it's 23 inches, something like that. The middle size.
How much water would it hold full?
Probably 15 gallons full. So we're bringing off about 3 and we still have a 4-foot full, you see.
And even in worst case, let's say it was actually half an inch above that dry valve, the test valve.
Be safe, but really
still
not
good.
enough to, I would want to make doubly sure my water pumps are working 100%. Like I started out with that little water before, so you could gain water. Then it would be safe, yeah, you wouldn't scorch the water at the drop back or above.
And this is really just giving it room for the steam, right?
That's right. Now, try a little more on the cloud, that's the idea. Okay, now take the torch, well, I think that's enough. Take the feet come around here now, and I'll let you open the pilot valve. Is that one right? Come around the other side. Oh, you can. This is it right here. Open it about a turn. Now stick your torch in the peephole and light it, Tom.
In the small one.
Yeah, in the little peephole. Now take it out and see if it lights. Light for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now take your screwdriver. I'm going to do this first because you might open it too much. But we
Where you kind of tickle it?
tickle the pin right there.
Valve it more.
Now, it's just about vaporized enough, but it'll vaporize itself now.
Is this car white gas?
This is why it's actually a Coleman fuel.
Actually, it smells like Coleman.
It is Coleman.
And what's the burner? Separate fuel
Yes,
source? This
yes.
one is separate.
Yeah, it's straight kerosene.
Anything after 1908 then?
Well, yeah, in my cars that's the case now. What actually happened, even in this 1913 set of instructions that I had here, and you didn't get one yet, but you have one if you'd like. They talk about a gasoline burner, I think. They might mention kerosene in there, but 13 is really just about the time they came out with the kerosene burners. But everybody who had earlier cars seemed to want to convert, so the factory sold a kit
Right.
to convert to kerosene. But this thing, 1910, it was converted to sometime. But my car is the one from 1980 on back, still have the gas. Yeah, that's a pretty nice pilot. I think he has about 30 pounds on it. You can look at the small gauge up there and see. Really should check that before we started. I forgot that. But
I wondered about that too.
about 30.
The small gauge?
The small gauge over near the.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yes, about 29, 29 and a half.
Yeah, well, anywhere between 20 and 35 is okay. Now, if you want to get the torch going again, Tom, and play it a little bit more on the main nozzle there. Start here and work it down to both sides to the main nozzle. The pilot would heat it up, but it would take 15 or 20 minutes to get those nozzles hot enough, so this is how we speed it up a little bit. Now, on a lot of standard burners, when you do this, you kind of keep putting the pilot out because the torch pulls the oxygen away from the pilot. But this one, since it's separate from underneath, it's not likely to do that. But when you get done heating the main, you always look through the peephole, make sure your pilot's okay before you close the little door.
So you don't flood the bottom of the burner?
Yeah, you want to make sure your pilot is on before you start lighting the burner.
Does this car have a fuse for green? Is that what the to the right of Tom's burner there?
Yeah, because no, on this one, this is the forward end of the main vaporizer. Most of them come in the back, but this one comes in here and coils around and then out here.
Okay.
Different ways of doing it. Now, when you start to see a little flame at the nozzle, then I say it's hot enough. You just starting to get, yeah, if you get a little right on that nozzle for a minute. 50%. You don't have to hit the button, hold the button now.
Oh, you don't?
Not if you push this.
Get your finger on that.
Yeah, you can scratch it.
I'm thinking about running out of gas in the tank here. Just about enough, just about I don't know, that's just that's what we're doing without it. Okay, so check your pilot, close your peephole. Now we opened some valves here. Chris closed this one, and then Chris,
Yep.
you can check it. There's plenty of water there still. And we should, man. I think now we can check that one
Okay.
Now remember I opened this vent up here, this stack blower. I'm gonna close that now because I sometimes forget it. All right, now we're ready to start the burner. And we start by putting pilot fuel into the main burner. That's what we call our firing up valve. It lights much easier on pilot fuel than it will light on kerosene, so it's get it going first on pilot fuel. This is our firing up valve. Now, here we don't dare open that one and walk away from it. We open it and then close it. Wait a minute, do it again. And then it's nice if it's quiet because you like to hear what's going on down there. It's not always quiet like on the field up at Hershey or someplace, but we do really run these cars by sound a lot of time. Now, watch what I do. Half a turn, close it again. Nothing. But I'm still gonna wait because I did put a little fuel in the vaporizer and that'll have a chance to heat up a little bit now just from the pile. Do it again. Still nothing.
Good vapor.
Probably just oozing through a little.
No, it sprayed a nice vapor anyway.
Just what didn't like because
Right.
I didn't hear it.
That was light. There.
Everybody on it.
Sounds like my basement.
No, it's still shut off. It's just 3 shots so far, shut off. I still do that a few times before I leave that on. Give it a chance to kind of clear itself. Don't want to force it. Now, see what you're probably seeing, it may even be dripping a little bit, but you're seeing, what you're seeing is kerosene because there was enough kerosene laying in
fuel
that
lines.
vaporizer ahead of the other. And-
Oh, okay.
But it'll soon start doing another thing. Whistles like that, good sign, but, well, I don't like to leave it open so it continues to whistle. But when you hear a little whistle like that, you know everything's clean, the nozzles are clear, there's nothing. If you have a little bit of speck of dirt in one nozzle, it will not whistle. Don't ask me why, but those nozzles do have to be clean to make that whistle. And it's run about a half a turn each time you set it up. It's drying out, you can tell by the sound of it.
Are you considering to shut it off? Do you keep shutting it off every time?
Still shutting it off every time. But now I'm probably got 100% of this stuff, the Coleman in there, so I think I'm gonna just crack it a little, leave it open there and see what happens.
It isn't labeled as a valve.
No, it isn't. I don't think. I guess it's going to do for of course, heating the vaporizer and getting everything hot enough so it should take the kerosene. Anybody remember what this valve is? I'll tell you.
That's the drip valve?
No, this has to do with fuel. Does anybody remember what it does? The drip valve's on the outside there, but
So is that actually just shutting off first stage from the tank?
well, it's what we call a pressure retaining valve. There's a little check valve right here that does the same thing if the check holds. But what you do when you leave the car standing, you close that, and that takes, that means that the pressure is off this check, it's off the diaphragm in your fuel automatic, and it's off the packing in your pumps. So but before you can pump by hand or any other way, you open that valve.
So it's really first in line from the tank, right?
Not the storage tank now.
But the
This
pressure
is
tank.
between the pressure tanks. It's really between your pumps, you might say, and the pressure tank, to keep the fuel from coming
So now
back
you
on
put
your
pressure
pump.
back on the pumps and everything's pressurized, but there's still no fuel going to the burner when you open that.
No, that has nothing to do
correct.
with it, but, yeah, that's right. In fact, the fuel to the burner comes off another fitting off the pressure tanks through this valve, through your main fire valve, through your steam automatic, and down to the burner. So that's, while they both come off the pressure tanks, they're two different. One is really the way you put pressure into the pressure tanks, this one. The other is taking it off for the burner. But, you know, we can shut this off. We always want to make sure our firing up valve is off before we open the main. Otherwise, it'll throw kerosene back into this tank, see, because the pressure's right there. Again, I'll go with the open-close system. Would come a little too raw if I just switched up. Again, and also I'm still, well, you can probably hear it getting a little stronger because of higher pressure, but no kerosene has actually come through yet. It's just pushing the stuff that was ahead of us. Ahead of it. Now it's starting to sound a little less dry, a little more raw. Don't confuse it with the steam sound down under the engine there, but
You have this valve open from the steam chest?
yeah. That's why it's blowing through a little bit.
Okay.
See how much stronger it sounds now. It's starting to get kerosene, probably starting to get that white vapor again out there. It was probably colorless with the pilot
What's
fuel.
colorless?
And now it's,
Yep, that's way again.
right. So again, you take it a little bit gingerly until eventually that kerosene will be colorless too when it gets hot enough, but not yet. As long as it's look clear now, you can usually tell if one's choked, it won't shoot in straight from both. Oh, that's pretty good to use. We didn't clean the arms before we started. I want to do that if you want to make sure. Certainly when you open that door just a little bit, the fume's going to get to us on the outside. Up a little more. That's good. Okay.
So that's checking the body construction out. The 08 is all wood, right?
Yeah,
Wooden
right.
fenders and all.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to leave that open. Again, maybe only half a spoke, actually. But this is the first time I've opened it and left it open. It may still come a little raw and I have to shut it off, but it may be all right. We'll see.
Can you open the, you can't look in that heat sight at this point?
Well, you shouldn't, it's kind of fast back and everything.
Okay.
You really should have the main burner off whenever you open your keyhole and set the timer. Somebody want to sit up there and pump? You want to see it clear. You want to keep it above 100. But when
Not
you,
past 120.
when you get to 120 or so, it's going to bypass anyway, so you're not going to gain much after that. If there's any doubt as we go along, we can always check water level with the tri-top here. We know we have plenty, you see. Now even though I don't touch the fire valve and Pete's not touching it either, it may tend to die down. And it's a good idea. Well, I don't know exactly why, but somebody was saying last week it has to do with air getting under the needle, but if you jiggle it a little bit, it'll usually come right strong again. That burner is still not on full. I'm firing the boiler slowly. That would be full.
That's the drip valve we hear back here.
Yeah.
Blowing off steam.
That's right.
Reassuring,
That
huh?
would be full, and that's, when you're on the road and want to make steam, that's the way it would be. But
Is that just like a quarter turn valve, or is it, you could just,
a quarter is as good as 2 or 3 turns.
that's okay.
Yeah. Same as wide opening and a quarter, really. Now, what's coming through the drip, we're blowing a lot through, it's water steam, it's wet stuff. And we don't need to blow so much. We'd like to blow a little, so we close it almost down, but still push the volume a little to go through.
There's no trusting this tube segment here, I mean, at this point, right?
Anything, but
So we get up to full operating temperature and actually probably move the car. From pump start, right. So pump start is nothing.
yeah, you don't have to have full boiler pressure, even at 200 pounds it'll work okay, but this is right, you have to have the water pressure.
Cut out the pump on.
And so once if we jack up, and I'm going to jack up a wheel here so that the pump fit, then it should work all right. But right now, it doesn't tell you anything. You only need to do now, you know there's about 3/4 of an inch of water in there when it's cold. So that'll be the high position. You'll never go below that. When it's down there and registering properly, that would mean high water in the boiler. Now, since we're set up to jack, we might as well jack up here.
Why is it the steering wheel on the right side?
The best explanation seems to be that buggies were driven from the right and ditches were more important than the center of the road in the early years. Wasn't enough traffic to worry about what was coming really regularly often or seeing around the car in order to pass, but it was important not to run into the ditch. Gradually they started to switch over. Henry Ford was about the first change over to left drive, I believe, 1910, I think. And Pierce Arrow was about the most expensive American car, was the last to switch over, 1921. Stanley's changed in 15. Now we can start the engine running, break it off. We're full forward here on a valve that's switching back there. So we'll almost start the drip there. Now if I get bursting speed without touching the throttle, it's because the water is still high in the boiler, and I'm throwing a little water over through the throttle, through the superheater pipe. As it hits that superheater, it's flashing in the steam and giving you the same thing can happen on the road if you get the boiler a little too full sometimes. You'll feel a burst of power, you close the throttle, the burst of power isn't quite finished when you close the throttle. It's still there for a second or two.
You can overcome that with the braking.
Yeah, the thing is you have to. This is a place where you need this right now.
If there's a car in front of you.
Yeah, right. But also, a flooded boiler can almost flood directly and you don't get that burst of power, you just lose yourself. That means you're just throwing water back to the engine instead of driving. Now, I've got a little too much much water. No question about that, because that's why I'm getting those perks. See, we're not touching the throttle here. So I'm going to blow a little off. This will do two things. It will not only lower the water a little bit, which you want to do, but it will also throw this column on the water indicator. And from that time on, you can almost distinguish the water indicator in the work process. Now you're almost in the later. Because that tube will heat up. We may not have enough pressure there yet, but I'll keep getting ready to. Normally I have a little more pressure, you don't have to play like normal. See that? Okay.
So is this indicating now that you're basically only a quarter full of water?
Yeah, it's indicating that, but it's because
Probably a false.
it hasn't had a chance to cool that column down again.
It's dropping now.
But it will drop very soon.
Drops real fast. Look at it go.
It's cooling right down again.
At what rate can the pumps replenish the water? How many gallons per minute? Does it vary?
One pump will more than vary with the level of flow. The reason you need two in case, well, I'm not sure I made this clear either. The bypass is open here. No, this should have been. Sorry. It is now. We were pumping water with both pumps. So that may be the reason I keep closing it. It should clear itself out. Bypassing water with these two.
Bypassing both of them now?
Yeah, this is open, both of them bypass, no matter where this one is. If you want to pump with one and bypass with one, you open this one and you close this one. But we're still pretty full, so we're going to bypass.
Close this one now?
It really doesn't matter. When this is open, you're not going to bypass anything.
Were these
strategically drilled holes in the floorboard factory, or is that a Tom Marshall addition? To catch the
No,
drips
that
under
was
the packing?
That was factory.
That was factory, okay.
Yeah, what I do sometimes is take a little lid off of a can or something and drill a hole in the middle of it and glue it to the floor there.
Uh-huh.
And then it won't run all over. That pump is leaking a little. I see it dripping through the...
Yeah.
I think it needs to be packed. I haven't packed it. But that's working like it's supposed to. You're supposed to get
Yeah, right through the floor.
fuel instead of having it settle in the bottom of the pump.
You don't ever attempt to tighten up those packing before it's running, or?
Not while it's running, but I gotta pull it up. I think the old packing hard needs to be pulled out of there.
What's the packing? Is that oakum? I mean, oakum and...
Well, they used to use a soft graphite packing for fuel. Teflon works pretty well normally now, but some Teflon works better than others. I got some woven Teflon, which I thought would be just the thing. Well, it doesn't seem to be very good. Maybe I don't have the right stuff. Now, you can see that the fuel pressure is going to hold 120 plus, maybe 130. Steam is still building, so we're about 300 pounds now. I'm going to show you how we can cook and keep it running. By lifting the outlet cap, now you don't see much there now. Now once I close the bypass, you still don't see much because this is open. See that? That shows it's pumping. Open that. When pumping against pressure, it ought to squirt like that. Now, actually, the way this one's piped, with this check valve between the pumps, you can see both pumps up here. You catch both of them on that front check. You have nothing, well, you have a little, but now wait till you close the bypass.
Yeah.
Both of them, see? Open this, just get one. It's the front one, because the back one's bypass. Close it, down both. Open it, you got nothing. Now again, that's the way they're supposed to work. When they're not pumping, sometimes you have to bleed them. It can be an obstruction coming from the tank, unlikely. Can be not enough water in the tank, unlikely, but happens sometimes. Can be the inlet ball is stuck or the outlet ball is stuck. That can happen like after standing all winter or something. Very often just tapping it like that will free it up. But we know the pumps are 100%. One other thing we should check is the oil winking. The chances are that's just flat. You can't really see it winking. The hotter it gets, the tank is right under here, the little oil tank, and it sits on top of the flue. So eventually it gets nice and warm from that flue, and when the oil gets a little thinner, you can see it winking. Now,
Fuel automatics cut in.
steam automatic shuts off, about 550.
But it shut off the fuel.
Shut off.
Is that a
That is just a,
pressure relief?
well, that's just an expansion device to take the surge out of the pump.
Okay,
I don't know how, yeah, the cushion, I don't know how well it works. We've had various things. Pumps are fairly quiet on this car, so I guess it must do some good. Now I'm gonna shut the burner off my hand anyway. You notice it shut down, that was the automatic shutting it off at 550 pounds. And we'll close the throttle. I lock the throttle. You can open the drip valve here. That's the whistle, but
Oh, okay.
I don't have a whistle on here right now. Get a couple turns, and we'll put the brake on. If we were gonna stand very long, we'll close the pressure retaining valve. And I'll take the jack off. One other way to see if we're getting oil at the exhaust.
Just feel it.
Well,
I mean, literally. For content.
yeah, well, I mean, if there's oil there, it'll be no oil there. You might see a little water, but you wouldn't see any oil if the engine were not getting oil, or we're putting oil with the steam. You can also look at the rods, your piston rods and your valve rods, and they're nice and oily and shiny.
I was admiring that.
Yeah.
Definitely well lubricated.
Yeah. This is the rocker arrangement on the pumps. See, this is the pump drive rod right here, which is working off the right-hand wrist pin of the engine. So it's moving at the same stroke as the engine, which is 5 inches on this car. So the bottom of this rocker arrangement is moving 5 inches, but the pump drive itself, which comes off up here, is 1/4 of that. It's a 4-to-1 ratio. So it's 1.25 stroke on your pump. We call these the short stroke or fast running pumps. On the condensing cars, the pumps are driven off the rear axle, and they have a much longer stroke, 3.5, 4 inches, and run much slower, pumping about the same amount of water or fuel, but
Quieter. Was that the idea?
quieter. And maybe a little stronger. They work on a crank arrangement. Well, there's a gear reduction, and then there's a crank that works the rod. I suppose the crank is 2 inches long, if the stroke is 4 inches, whatever. Okay, we can put the floor back in. Ask questions if you have any there, and it's go on.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right, we have to go down and back first. Now, Tom, that's you. Very good. We got it. This we really need for this.
Keep it handy just in case.
I have the basics here. Yeah, we'll
A
put our-
torch.
Let me get another tank on
Yeah.
this too.
Is this car essentially original, other than modifications to the burner?
Yeah, the burner's about the only thing that's been changed at all.
Gorgeous color.
You wanna put that in on my
That's just a gorgeous color.
camera?
You like that color? No, it's gonna be changed.
Really?
This car's going to a professional restoration shop this fall. And it's, I guess we're gonna paint it about
Keys
the
for the car,
original
let me go
color,
check it
which
What should be there?
green body and black fenders and yellow or cream wheels and undercarriage.
How can you research the color? Are the records from the production records or not?
Yes, and unfortunately, almost all Stanley from that period, 1910, 11, and 12,
Were
were
the
that
same
green
color.
yellow combination.
So it's a pretty safe assumption.
Yeah. Some of the roadsters were blue. My dad always liked blue and red. He had this car painted in 1946, and so
You're
it's the
kidding.
same.
Is this the 1946 paint job?
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Except the wheels were redone because we had to have smaller wheels on it. Then we couldn't get tires the original size.
Right.
These wheels were new in the mid-70s.
Are they metal or wood?
Wood.
Spokes are wood. The rims, of course, are metal, and the hubs are metal.
What kind of wood is it, ash?
Probably.
Ash, I think, yeah. Back when
Most of the
this
cars
is
probably
ash.
ash.
Most of the cars ash. The frame is ash. The perch poles are ash. These are perch poles. The front rear axle. Where you have full-
These are ash?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
They have metal ends.
Mm-hmm. But they like the flexible
They-
action of the wood versus the tubular steel or something.
Well, they used to break steel. If you have a piece of pipe in place of a wooden perch pole, you have to have a flexible joint at one end, or you'll snap that pipe right off.
It can't work like a torsion.
You'd think it would. but-
Right.
They have to be solid.
Yeah. And then it's too heavy.
No,
Or
the
too
Franklin-
stiff.
The Franklins had full elliptic springs, I'm told, right up to the end. I didn't realize in the early 30s they were still full elliptic in front, but I guess they were. And they didn't have perch poles. And I said to a Franklin owner, well, your wheelbase must change about 2 inches from the time you put your brake on to.
I bet it
Yeah,
does.
he says it probably does. They didn't worry about that. But both the Franklins and the Stanleys rode pretty nicely, easy because of the wood frames and the full elliptic springs. It was kind of a more cushion ride.
But they had, I guess they had kilns and everything in 1900 for drying wood. Because you couldn't build this thing out of green wood and shrink that.
Well, I tell you, the fellow who made a lot of wood spoke wheels for us back in the 70s was a fellow in Springfield, Ohio named Hayes, Elster Hayes. And Elster would buy his ash down in Kentucky or southern Ohio, apparently there's a lot of it down there. And he would bring it up and store it, I guess, in his shop or overhead. And he would only build wheels in the wintertime, when the humidity was low in the shop. But all due respect to Elster, we thought he was building the best wheels that could be built. He seemed to be so particular. His wheels do warp a little bit. And of course, some of the old wheels did and some didn't. I have a couple cars here with original wheels and they're just perfect. But they're not all that way sometimes. And the wobble really doesn't bother you. You don't know it when you're riding in the car. You can't feel it. Doesn't seem to wear tires, but it just doesn't look very good.
There's no way of truing the wheel, but because there's no, this is just a fit. There's no way to tension any spoke,
I'm
is there?
sure if you're smart enough, you can true that wheel with wedges and so
Mhm.
forth.
Because they were shims, I would imagine you would be able to.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I have cheated a little bit sometimes where there was a little bit of a wobble by offsetting the rim a little bit. In other words, the rim is not quite true with the wheel, but it looks true when you're going down the road and nobody notices that it's not true with the wheel.
Are these Hayes wheels on this car? These are built by Hayes?
These are built by Hayes, but you have to supply your own hubs, and so of course we had to stand
Took the
hubs
original hubs.
anyway. Right. But Hayes also supplied rims, and these rims really were not very good. They weren't made heavy enough, And I bought 3 sets of rims from him. These are not Hayes' rims anymore.
Mm-hmm.
These rims were made by a fellow named Bruce Green in Cleveland, Tennessee. And Bruce makes beautiful rims, but they're awful expensive. But I had trouble getting the Hayes rims off, and I said, Bruce, if I bring the wheels complete new rims to you, can you take the old ones off and put the new ones on? So he did it down there, and he did a nice job, and they run very true. I still have one car with Hayes rims, and it's a light car, and they probably won't give any trouble, but I had them on the big 30-horse car on the 1979 trip, and I thought I was all set with new rims, and they gave out, they split.
Lovely.
It wasn't any good for that weight.
It's a continuous rim, though. It isn't a split rim, correct?
It
And then
has
this wood insert, this is
Yeah, the
actually,
rim
this is
is-
the attachment point to the rim, and it's a one-piece rim.
That's right, the lock ring comes off the side, so it's a straight side tire.
Oh, okay, there is a lock ring.
That's right, it
Okay.
comes off the side, and that's how you get the tire. Put a little air in from time to time. I think I'll put it up to about 35 maybe, since we have it right here. It's
I'm just gonna get open the valve.
yeah, this okay.
So there isn't even a Schrader valve in that.
Well, I think there is.
No, there's no pin.
Oh, is it? Well, some of them.
Pours out of it.
Some of them have a valve in there,
But the Schrader valve was original equipment?
but as far as I know it was.
Mhm.
I
Maybe
have-
something had to hold the tire pressure in and inflatable tires.
They also had a needle valve. They didn't rely on that completely. Okay, I guess the one person will close the door out there, everybody else can get in, whatever.
Doorman.
What I say down, of course, is look at the pilot, but I have such confidence in this pilot that I assume it's fine. Now, I probably can't get the burner on because the automatic probably still has it shut off.
So you have to blow off steam?
No, I'll just run a little bit and when it drops
Okay.
below 500, I can light it.
Stored energy, I'm forgetting.
So we unlock the throttle, close the grip valve, but I'm gonna crack it open just a little bit. 1 second, it's gonna be a little rough when you first start. Open the pressure retaining valve on the floor, brakes off. Now, that might have been hooked in the correct position before, so we'll see if we can hook it there. That's the start.
Seatbelts on?
Now I can really close that drip valve because that steam is pretty good. So I could try to light it, but nothing. Might seep through a little bit, basically.
You wouldn't want to trust this person.
That's right.
As long as you have well insulated fingers, beautiful fire. Love the way it's rolling.
Yeah, it's probably settled down on the grate a little more than when we first lit it. It
A little
tends
lower.
to lift. Yeah, but that's the way they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you make it stronger, if it's not strong enough, is usually, well, assuming you don't have any restriction anywhere, you just file a little off that pin that goes through the nozzle. But if you get them too strong, they'll go yellow because they won't have enough air. They'll be too rich. So the idea is to have a nice, strong blue pilot. Also, the pilot doesn't want to be too lean. And some of them will suck too much air. I have some where I have a little tube inside the little mixing tube, sleeve inside the mixing tube to cut down on the air. If they're too lean, they tend to blow out too easily. They look beautiful on the floor, but when you're going down the road, that air hitting it gets even leaner, I suppose, and tends to blow out too easy.
Any difference in terms of the carbon deposits and all? Being too little, too rich?
Well, I don't know if that's what causes carbon. What usually will cause carbon, well, of course, poor fuel will do it, and in the early years they had much longer, well, they were burning gasoline as, you know what I mean, the only kind of gasoline they had was pretty much unrefined white gasoline. And it required more vaporization for the pilot than this Coleman fuel does. So we have to have much shorter vaporizers now for the Coleman or for hexane. But it works better and it seems to have less carbon buildup. Of course, you know, then, just like now, and probably even more so then, as people buying gasoline from the country store, it's buried all over the place. And, some of it was contaminated with this or that. It's a wonder they've made it as well as we. But when my dad and I first had these cars as antiques back in the late 40s, we had more trouble with fuel than most anything. And pilot fuel especially. Kerosene wasn't too bad.
I think that's because all the other cars on the road had filters or settling bowls or you know, some way of filtering things out, and these don't.
Well, that's not really the answer. You can put a filter on these too. And Pete, I always leave those unhooked, and I'll tell you
They don't
why.
blow up, huh?
I'll tell you why.
On you?
But the carbon and the dirt that comes into the nozzle is usually not coming all the way from the tank. It's forming inside the vaporizer when that heat hits it. And some of the condensing cars had a little screen hot into the vaporizer. The theory was that it would pick up specks and all when you get in the nozzle. Today we don't use those screens. We found they used to choke up a good bit, but we do sometimes. I make little screens. This car's got them in, as a matter of fact, that fit inside the nozzle. You need to take them out every couple of days and clean them a little bit, but it does keep those chips out of the nozzle. And there's a fellow in California that has designed a nozzle that's pretty clever too, and I have a few sets of his nozzles which work well. He drilled, well, it's a long nozzle. I mean, it's a long cap screw, you might say. And of course, the nozzle is the same size that it needs to be, roughly 60 drill size. But he took around the back part of that cap screw and drilled about 8 holes, a little smaller than 60, maybe 64, 66, something like that. And he figured that any of the carbon chips might block 2 or 3 of the small holes, but you keep it out of the main nozzle.
Okay.
That works pretty well too, but again, you take them out every couple of days and clean them. It's a lot better than cleaning on the road all the time. And sometimes we have no trouble, so it must depend on fuel, I guess, but always carry a pricker like this. and this is a temporary fix. You prick your nozzle with the fuel going through it and loosen up chips very often. It's not really the right way to clean them. The right way to clean them is take them out and get the chips out of there, but this will do it temporarily for you. Well, it's the,
Well, why do you keep the hood loose?
oh yeah, why don't you keep the hood loose? Well, I mentioned that what can happen if the pilot goes out, if there's any buildup of fuel, if you're feeding fuel too fast and you get raw fuel under there, eventually it's going to ignite. And when it ignites, it'll probably explode. It'll sound like a cannon going off. When it does,
Okay.
Would that explain the distortion in the sheet metal up here? I noticed that going down the road.
I had the hood blow up once. I mean, blow
From
up
wind.
From wind. In Montana, in 1972, the first transcontinental trip with a big car, two-lane highway, wind was blowing about 40 miles an hour past the truck. The hood blew back, hit the windshield, and pushed the windshield. The windshield was a two-piece windshield like this, and pushed it back against the steering wheel. Fortunately, it didn't break the glass, and fortunately, this did relieve it some. I mean, when it hit that, it did move, but it still bent the flap all up. I, in later years, had a new flap made for that hood. I think it's the same hood, but I had a new flap. So after that, I did hook them for a while out in that country anyway, but that's the only time it ever blew up that way.
I did it on the Jeep. It's very upsetting. And all of a sudden you can't see anything. At least this hood you can still see around a little bit. In the Jeep you couldn't see a thing.
What do you do if the pilot light goes out while you're driving?
Get your torch out.
Yeah, well, the best thing to do if your steam is up over 400 pounds is to drive a quarter of a mile. If it happens in a parade and you can't move, that's when you need that stack blower, or else you sit there and pray that it's going to. Of course, your fire's all out at that time. You don't try to light your fire, obviously, because you're just going to throw more raw fuel in. So you shut everything off, and you try to get those fumes out before you come around here with a torch and attempt to light your pilot again. Normally, in a parade, if you can open that little stack blower there, it'll just suck those fumes right out, and if you have a chance to jump out. And again, a parade like over here at Hocassin, it's all downhill. You can pretty much get through the parade without lighting your burners. But I don't know that I ever had the pilot go out in the parade, but
Is the stack blower just a steam outlet into the stack?
it's just a jet, yeah, about
Push
number
everything up.
55 drill size, and just make it out of a cap screw and screw it in the bottom of a piece of pipe, or you can make it out of a pipe plug and just put a little hole in it. And
That's a non-original.
that's not original. No, that's not original. They figured you'd never have any trouble if you read the literature. Stanley's were trouble-free. Well, you want to drive around a little bit?
Rock,
A
paper, scissors.
couple of things we didn't do, which I guess I did mention to other groups, was checking fuel in the tank, checking water in the tank, checking pilot fuel. I knew I was okay, but the water is easy to check. Look at the water level here in this glass. We still have almost half a tank. It looked out here when I started. So, but what we will do, when we get through the day, we blow the boiler down, we'll put water in the tank, we'll make sure the tank is almost full, so that when it creates a vacuum and tries to siphon, it won't pull air, it'll have plenty of water to work on there. fuel, the fuel tank's under the front seat, you have to check it with a stick. And we can check it, but that's kind of elementary. I don't know that it's any neat. Yeah, that cushion comes out deep. That's when you get to it. When you're here, you have to work lifts out, and then your forage right there.
Now, there's no pressure here.
No pressure there.
That tank wouldn't take that compressor. Suck itself in.
That's your
How many
kerosene.
gallons does it hold?
About 20 kerosene.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oxidation level.
Well, I got an awful lot of that stuff, and you normally get that with gasoline. You normally don't get that with kerosene. Gasoline that sits in the tank too long will give you that verdigris or whatever you want to call it.
They must be putting the additives in kerosene now, too.
Yeah.
I don't know what
You really
caused
don't know
that.
what they put in stuff.
Yeah. And then of course your pilot fuel, pilot tank only holds 3 gallons, and you put about 2 or 2 1/4 in there, allowing a little space for air at the top. And it would be expected to use about 1 gallon in a 12-hour day. Well, we don't often burn 12 hours in a stretch, so
So the only way to check that is to bring the pressure down and take the cap off.
yeah.
Bleed it out right here, open the valve, or do you get fuel if you're not careful?
Now you loosen the cap and let
Just
it
let it-
escape there, and let the pressure escape before you take it all the way off. On a trip, I usually fill the pilot tank every 2 days. There's probably enough in there for 3 days, but I usually do it every 2 days.
You toured with this car?
A little bit. Of course, most of the recent tours are hub tours where you just go one place and you leave your trailer and stay there for 4 or 5 nights and make day trips out. Well, you can come back to your fuel supply every night that way and things like that. When you have your pilot fuel with you on the trailer usually. But, years ago we went on the Glidden tour in 1947. Glidden tour in 52. I've been on quite a few steam car tours with it. Probably the longest tour, maybe this one was up to New England and back in 47. We never had trailers in those days, but the traffic wasn't so bad either, so it was kind of fun going and coming. It's not that much fun in this area anymore.
Not at all.
Well, who wants to drive first?
You're paying attention up there, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. You fellas can come and
Scared to
watch,
bump
whatever.
anything.
I'll sit in front of the feet. Now, we've been stopped a little while, and we probably ought to try to light the burning and firing up get the shot.
Gonna go?
Yeah, I got
of that before we go on.
Firing up valve
I'll
of
go
the...
if you're not gonna go.
That's the one.
Get it.
Yes.
So we're just gonna give it a quarter turn, turn it right back,
Right.
just listening.
Now that's not good.
That's not good?
Lit in the mixing tube. That's what that roar is you hear. Look.
Yeah. Even back out.
Now what I'm going to do is open this stack door.
Just give you a draw.
Probably.
Draw meaning not condensed enough.
Part of the problem there is the fact that we're shut off on the steamer and
There's still a large column of fuel.
and
from the steam automatic down to
Well,
the
the steam
vaporizer?
automatic may still be partially closed, and that's, well, that didn't sound like it. It sounded like it tried to light off, but then in that situation, we might have been better to start on kerosene. You know, the pilot's good and strong, everything's hot, and it just may be that there wasn't enough pressure there to really close. Had we been moving along the road and tried to light it, that wouldn't have happened. The air would have helped us in that
Because you
position.
would have had the draw going too, right? In other words,
Now we just check the pilot again. It's okay, you know, look funny because of it.
Yeah, it looks good now.
Now, what was the valve you opened inside?
That was the stack
fan.
Stack blower.
That was the stack blower. That helped suck those fumes out. So I don't think we need to worry about a lot of fumes being back in there now. We should have, what we had should have burned off here, and then pulled out by the blower. But if we want to make sure we can, the pilot is as strong as it should be, we can tickle it again, which never hurts. When you do this, you don't want to take that screw out very far because it'll light here, you see. So you do it kind of gingerly. Sounds a little stronger than they well it is. That's as strong as it's going to get because there's nothing on the pin.
Does that screw need to be replaced very often?
Pardon?
Does that screw need to be replaced very often?
The screw with the pin in it through
Yeah.
the nozzle? No.
Or is the pin replaceable separate?
Well, you can take the pin out. The pin just goes in a little tiny. See, that screw has about a 45-degree seat
Okay.
that makes the seat there when you screw it in. It's a straight thread on the screw. It's not like a pipe thread, but it's got a seat. And the pin, there's a tiny hole. Well, the pin's about 36 thousandths in diameter, would be roughly 64 drill size, and because you can buy wire that size, and there's a hole in the end of that little screw, and the pin goes in there a little bit, and then you just pin it enough to make the pin tight.
To hold it.
To hold the pin in place. So you can replace the pin.
Is that like piano wire or?
It is, exactly.
Okay.
That's what it is. And so you try to fit the wire tight to the nozzle. In other words, if you're using wire that's 36 thousandths, you want a 64 drill nozzle, which would be 36 thousandths. And then so theoretically there wouldn't be any fuel get through that.
So you start
In
filing
practice, you
more.
might get a little, but you file flat on the top of the pin until you get the amount that you want.
Okay.
And then the idea is when you tickle it, that flat, you see, will kind of loosen up stuff.
I just wondered, since it seems to get quite a bit of exercise, it seems to be a point that might wear a little bit sooner
Well,
than a
that
lot
piano
of
wire won't wear probably as much as the nozzle will.
No, but I imagine with the heat there, it would probably tend to oxidize.
Doesn't seem to.
No?
No, they'll last pretty much forever. Once you get them right now. There are all kinds of pilots, and a lot of people will tell you the Stanley pilot was no good, that they have an improvement. But I think Stanley's work pretty well. And some had an adjustable pilot where they had sort of a tapered pin with a little packing nut. And you could, in other words, instead of that screw going against the seat, they rely on that little packing nut to hold the pressure. And you could run the pin in further and back it out a little bit, depending on, and make your pilot a little stronger or a little weaker that way. Some people like that. I never could keep them constant that way. You get it set, and a half hour later it's so weak it's almost gone out. So I like this better. But anyway, everybody has their own improvements. You want to try again? This time we'll watch up front. And I think I I think maybe go just with a straight kerosene on and off Pete, this
The
time.
straight kerosene, that's
But-
the longest shaft here.
Yeah, that's
Coming
the
down.
longest one, but of course, if really, go ahead.
Big blurb.
Nothing yet. Okay,
There it goes.
got it that time. Give her a little more. Shut it off. She's lit good now. Now you can give her another shot if you want. It'll take it down all right. You can leave it on the back. Probably could have done also if they wanted to help themselves a little more than maybe Throttling off.
That unscrews.
Yeah.
Stop position. It will screw right up.
Sometimes you have to have it on enough to keep from getting fumes because it's just kind of seeping through. And that whistling doesn't hurt. I just don't like to hear it all the time, but then it won't. Once it gets good and hot, it won't whistle anymore. Now close your drip.
Drip.
Open your outside valve on the floor there. You're supposed to retaining valve.
How far do you have to open it?
Oh, turn is fine. Or 2 turns won't hurt.
Okay. Bypass.
Bypass. We're on 1 pump, so let's leave it that way for right now.
Right. Handbrake.
Handbrake off. Now you get the feel of the throttle. Now remember, it's not instant power, so sometimes you give it a little and close it again. Or give it a little and you may get about the right amount to start off. And it's going to start off on the automatic.
Click this in.
No, we'll leave it on the
No power steering.
In some respects, it's harder driving around the driveway than it would be on the road, of course, but it also gives a way to get the feel of the
Took the steam off a little prematurely there again. Yeah, we've got 500 pounds still.
You can see that Lincoln is working real good now. The running slow and it's gotten hotter now.
Oh, okay. Real weaker.
One pump's kicking down last night's thing. This circle was here, they built that driveway around the other side of the house in 1970 or 71. They started getting up that wagon ride up there and didn't want to turn around every time. This driveway was good.
In these cities, is there any problem with water condensing in the cylinder? In the
When we sit like that,
and when you start out, is there like a pool of water in there that needs to?
well, yeah, maybe a little bit. Now, if your throttle's not leaking, of course, it wouldn't be very much. If the throttle was leaking a little bit and it's got a little cooler, it might be putting a little steam back there, which would condense. You shouldn't start out, by opening the throttle and making a dashboard until everything gets hot, because that could damage the engine. You want to start slowly and probably with the grip open just a little bit, at least for a couple car lengths before you close it.
So I just wondered about the.
Yeah, you can pull up and back in again if you want to do that. Now, the first time we opened the doors there, in case somebody didn't get stopped, but I don't think we need to do that, do we? In the garage.
That's true. No. You want to back up or just stop here then?
No, I want you to experiment with backing up. Holding it,
Oh, we have throttle too,
hold
obviously.
it all the way to the floor.
Right.
Hold it down and then open the throttle a little bit. Good, now cut the other way, Pete. Now about straight, that'll be good. You can come a little more if you want.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so
Very
now
good.
first, lock
Now,
throttle.
Lock the throttle. Open the drip valve. Doesn't matter what you do with your left foot. Put the brake on. Since we're gone right away, you really don't
Don't
have
wanna
to
shut
close.
down the button.
Don't
Right.
need to, no.
Okay. This is great.
Press enough, anyway.
Okay,
Now,
the burner's on.
burner's off. Well, you're right, burner's on. Burner's
That is
off
so
on the
cool.
automatic. Should turn it off, almost.
I could give up most of the car. Now I'm limited to just have a 66 million.
Unlock the throttle.
Was a 389, but it got blown to shreds. Right now it has a Ram Air 3.
Yep.
What was that? G60 GTO engine.
All the way and then open it up just a little
No,
crack.
you won't need to open it since it's still hot.
I've been British car guy, Willie's kind of guy. Like to play around. Now it's with babies. Playing to 20 years.
believe the
Really
cylinder
cool.
has too.
Okay.
If you have a piston valve like later locomotives had, noble steamers, and then you have to have cylinder cocks to relieve the pressure of
Really?
each end of the
Those-
cylinder.
Okay.
So a slug of water can't blow out a cylinder head
one
and
hand,
relieve itself.
Torques.
Well, on these, it still can happen. A slug of water, if you get too big a slug, you can force it too much. But normally they figure just a little water can relieve itself through the valve itself as it jumps off the seat. Excessive pressure would push it off the seats and let it relieve itself right through the exhaust port. The exhaust. But yeah, that's what the drip valve is, just a relief valve. It's an 1/8" pipe fitting screwed right into the cap on the bottom of the steam chest. Sometimes they'll choke up with oil, a drip valve, or once in a while. And unscrew the stem with a wire and poke them out.
What if you opened it and opened the throttle? Will that blow it out?
It will if it's not too bad. I've seen them kicked up, so you have to.
Dig it out.
Well, you
Let's
want
go, pilot.
That's the throttle on you pull down. Of course, these are just
Okay.
okay.
So
Close
it's a
your
drip valve.
Unlock your throttle.
So,
Take your brake off. And we didn't close the retaining valve. 'Cause
No, I
we
did.
just-
I
You did
closed it.
close it. Okay, open your retaining
that's the
valve.
one direct
That's
in the
the
middle?
outside.
The
one.
outside.
Yeah.
What about a turn or?
Yeah, turn and a half, that's fine. Okay, now our steam burner is probably still shut off on the automatic because we've got over 500 pounds
500
there. So
pounds.
we'll start without lighting the burner. We'll light it after we get started.
Okay.
You're on one water pump. We got this closed, we got the other one open. I think it is. I've been running on one pump and that seems to... See, now it came up here in glass when we stop, but when we start, I think you'll see it'll come back in. If it doesn't, we'll put two pumps on for a little while. I don't think the drip valve's completely closed yet,
Okay. That was the, that's what the noise is.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple-
He really had that open. That sounds more like it did. It would definitely take some getting used to.
Yeah, you drift about half the time going around here.
Now you still have the burner shut off?
I still haven't shut off, now we ought to light it now. You want to try to light it, Tom?
Okay, that's
On
this one, right?
Yeah, go about half a turn and then shut her off. A little more. You may not have given it quite enough. It's coming okay.
Oh, okay.
That's all right.
Yep, I hear it.
Now you can open it and leave it open about it explodes when it burns out. Zero. That's good. It won't be too much. It'll take a few. The water indicator came
Water
back
came
down.
back down. see what you mean by the wink now.
Say it winking?
Now it's pumping the oil into the steam, right?
That's right, putting this few drops in.
If you have the throttle closed, the wheels turning are going to make the pumps work also?
Yeah, the pumps run off the engine, so whenever the engine, even when you're drifting, the
Right.
engine's still running, yeah.
Stand out on the running board.
Hold on with nothing. Gotta let me out back there. Butch, why don't you stop? Let me get out. I'll get you on the way around.
Sometimes just from the fuel laying in the line, this removes the pilot valve, so I'm gonna set it up.
Which one?
This one.
Okay.
This is the pilot, this is firing up, this is the main fuel.
And the one below it is the steam
Stack blower.
stack blower,
That was
yeah.
originally the siphon, yeah. This was a shut off on the whistle line, so we're not using that now. It's just closed. This is your second water pump, which we've had open. We've been running on just one pump. I will close it because in order for it to siphon, they all have to be closed.
How about the bypass? Should it be
This
closed?
should be closed too. Of course, this has been closed because we've been running on one pump.
Why is there a valve on the pilot? Just to shut it off to retain pressure too? Over here? Or is that just for the filling operation of air?
The filling unit, you leave that closed. That's just when you fill it. Now, pressure not dropping much. It's going to be dropping little. But the pilot tank now might be down to only about 1 gallon of fuel in there. So when you get more air, of course, it won't drop off
Right,
as
won't
fast.
drop as fast. Tom, why is there steam going over that big water tower?
Well, I'm not quite clear of their system, but they have a steam pump to pump water up into the tower, and apparently they must keep a little steam turned on there. What is to keep the water warmer in the tower? I mean, saying they don't need it now, but we noticed that yesterday.
Yeah, I heard that this week. and we went on that 5-mile drive, we should have had you in the back of the pickup truck in front of
Down
us.
in the tank in here, it's not quite as high as the top of the tank, so it will run out the glass before the overflow. So we'll come up in here where we can't see it, and we'll say that's fair enough.
There's a copper tank inside this
Yeah.
pipework.
It runs from there to the back seat. You can also fill it with a bucket if you have to. There's a great big, like a handhold opening under the seat cushion there. A big,
Is it baffled at all?
yeah.
I think the big railroad company is gonna need some woodwork on it soon.
It might. I've got to inspect that
It's got a
before.
little dry.
I replaced a few of those particularly valuable cars. I was saying before you got here, there's
And you're
only
letting us
two
drive
of these,
it?
only two of these in existence.
Wow.
The Model 71. This model really was built in 1910 and 11 with a narrow back seat. It's supposed to be a little sportier than the Model 70 had a wider back seat. It was a 5-passenger car. And the seat comes out over the fender. And there's not that many 70s, but there are about half a dozen, but there's only two of these. And it really, it needs a restoration job. It was restored in 1946. They didn't do things as well as they do now. The fenders, there's just a lot of things being patched up about this car. And so I just thought
Doing the right thing,
I'd
basically.
like to have a nice thing. And Charlie Johnson is a top-notch man on steamers. He restored a couple of his own, and then he worked for different people. He worked for Amesley for a while, but then he worked for Willis Able, and he worked for Alan Blazek most recently. Blazek is this big collector in California who has 50 steam cars or something, and he did some restorations for Alan on my National Postcard. They were just gorgeous. And he decided he'd had enough of Alan, so he went in business on his own here a few months ago. And so I signed up, I think, with just either 2 or 3 cars ahead of me. He takes 2 in at a time, and he doesn't have room for any more. But he said he'd be ready for this one in the fall.
So he's gonna take it all the way down then, their frame?
Yes.
Used to be really rude.
But he has 2 types of restorations. One is the Contour d'Elegance type, and the other one is,
Drive-in.
yeah, not quite that good. And I told him I wanted the one not quite that good.
Just to be really rude, what's that worth? Like 20?
What's that?
To have that done? About 20?
That won't touch it. That won't touch it. But restored back in 1946, and then he had to do most of the mechanics over again. But
Will they get into that? I mean, with this restoration, they'll take the
Charlie had to do
boiler
a
apart
little
and everything?
mechanics, yeah, on the engine. There's nothing really wrong with the engine, but people today are fixing a couple weak points in the engine, and I think the engine being as old as it is and all, it would pay to have that done. We put slides in the crossheads instead of the little balls that this one has. They put on a little heavier connecting rod, which is sort of a weak point.
Plus, it'd be a shame to have it completely painted and pristine and then have to take something out of it. Risk
Well,
scratching it up.
Yeah, well, he'll do that.
Right. I mean, all the more
As he
reason
does
to
his own
inspect
parts,
everything while it's
yeah.
apart.
And he may even, he said, I'm going to try to save the leather, because the leather was new about maybe 15 years ago. But the problem is, he wants to get in back here to do some kind of repair work. I forget what it is he wants to do. He has to get at the other side here. So maybe we can save, we can definitely save the cushions, but he wasn't sure about that. Okay, we can check the pilot and see what it looks like, whether it's gone out yet. Yeah, it has gone out now, because I don't see any blue. Your eyes might be better than mine, I don't think. It's out, so we're ready to blow down. The theory of this is, you blow all the water out with that steam pressure behind it, and you create a scouring action in there as you do that. And that supposedly blows any solid material, any chemical buildup with the water. And then when you're through blowing down, you still have maybe 300 pounds of steam, enough to back in, be enough to drive up to the house, but that would be about it, because all your reserves
Right,
gone.
gone.
When the water's gone, all your reserves gone. And but then as the pressure goes down, you create a vacuum. It'll suck itself full again from the tank if there are no leaks. Now today, I can't really do that. I'm gonna blow down, but
You have people coming in an
yeah,
hour
I
and a
have
half.
to fire up again, so it doesn't have time to siphon, so I have to fill the boiler with a hose in order to be ready. Okay, so we let those two.
Goes bypass in this position, not over here. That's what you want to the site. Now this is starting to get drier.
felt just a few little specks of dirt, not much. This boiler's pretty clean, but usually if you're gonna get dirt sediment out, it'll come with the last of the water when you first get the dry stuff. I suppose floating on the water probably.
And on the condenser car, that's when you get all the oil comes flying out, right?
Yes, well, yes, that's
Just the very last shot.
probably most of it.
Yeah.
And with a condenser, the water tanks are under the floor here, so they do have an overflow, so we usually let it overflow and float a lot of the oil off the tank. Because the water in the tank on a condenser gets pretty warm because of the circulation. Anybody want to back in or want me to do it?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
Remember, there's only 2 of these in
You
existence.
probably gotta pull ahead first, Pete, and get over this way a little bit.
Yeah. Now, valve-wise, I'm not worried about anything. Do I want to close the drip valve
Yeah,
back?
you want to close the drip valve. And unlock your throttle, but you don't need to worry about much else except the brake, take
Right.
the brake off. We wouldn't be worried about wet steam now because it's just nothing but dry steam in there. That's good. Straight back for a while. That's good. Can you see this side?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got plenty of room actually back there. So there's a little furrow right here. A little more. That's good. That's good.
Now, several times you've talked about filling the boiler with a hose.
Yeah.
You just connect right here?
That's right.
Okay.
Right to the-
And then you open up the stack?
Well, the throttle anyway.
throttle,
and
okay.
the drip would be open, so that when it's
Okay, so then it'll go up through the throttle,
and
well,
I'll see
through the
water
superheater.
running out the drip, and that's when I'll know everything's full.
Okay.
Okay, did you close or open the drip again, Pete?
Open the drip. Yeah. Make sure everything else is closed, right?
It's closed, right?
One of the accessories that came with the car was a tube that had a strainer on it that you could
Fill from the creek.
Yeah,
Give it the old creek fill.
A creek or a horse trough or whatever.
Just don't fill it from the red clay, please.
What pump was used to pump the water through that thing?
Venturi
it's a little jet of steam, which they call a siphon, but it was really an injector. I have some of those strainers here someplace.
These boxes.
Okay, so then it used something similar, similar to the stack blower then, right?
Exactly.
Is that the idea?
Exactly the same thing, yeah.
Okay. I've seen them for some of the fire hoses. I just wondered what they were going to use, or what they used in order to, what power they used to suck it up. So steam power again, huh?
It's not a siphon, but as I say, it's just ejected is what it is. So
Okay.
That's the one on the end of the hose
Oh, okay.
that you stuck down in the lake or in a horse trough or wherever you're going to suck water from. This is.
So it's just like a large garden hose.
Yeah. The 3/4 hose usually they used in those days instead of 5/8.
Neat, eh?
There's the siphon. The hose goes on here. And your hose connection for your garden hose. And your steam line hooks to here.
Okay.
So have this end down in the water. You open the valve back here and your steam, your jet comes, and you have a delivery pipe here into your tank. This is usually fastened to the side of the tank.
Okay.
And this needs about a foot for a delivery pipe, or a little bit more to work right. But anyway, and the jet just pulls the water, so the steam jet pulls the water. That's fast. You fill the tank in about 2-3 minutes. It doesn't take long.
Wow.
Faster than with a regular pressure system in your house. But yeah, this would be here with the hose in between, see?
Mm-hmm.
Or someplace above the running board there. I never carried them on the car. I don't think they look very good. And another thing that happens, unless this is higher than the top of the tank, the way you stow it away, the water will run out here before it'll run over out your overflow, so you don't get your tank quite full.